All right, what's up, everybody? We have another PTA Inspire series interview. Today, I'm here with Vanessa, and I'm really super proud of her. I won't spoil too much of her story, but I know we've been talking for a long time. She had gone through multiple attempts on this thing, and she finally passed in July. So she is on the other side of this. It is very possible to get to the other side. Even though those stats at the bottom of your score report say that you can't, you can definitely still pass this thing, even if you feel like you're deep in the hole. So the Inspire series is to interview students who have been in my coaching program. So if you're interested in learning more about that, you can check out the link that I'm listing down below. But I want to hear what Vanessa has to say. So hello, Vanessa. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. So my name is Vanessa. I live in Chicago. I actually when I started PTA, I actually wasn't going in for that. I was going in for nursing actually. I had taken a CNA course. I believe it was 2017. So at first I still didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I still was kind of just taking prereqs at the time. Still was a little hesitant, didn't know what I wanted to do. I took the CNA course. After that, I found a job. And then I said, you know what, I'm going to go in for nursing. I had already the prereqs, I had the grades. I was very close to going into nursing. But then I actually started seeing, as a CNA, you start seeing that there's much more than nursing. At the time, I wasn't as educated in healthcare careers. I only thought it was just nursing. After that, I started working with a lot of, because I work, I'm a float. So I've worked rehab, I worked long-term. I've also worked memory care. So a lot of that, I started working, when I was working rehab, I started to see that there was like physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech therapy. One day I was actually working with a therapist, and she was a physical therapist, and I'm helping her with her transferring and everything. I'm helping her out. And then after she was done with her patient, she came and talked to me. She's like, oh, I was just wondering, are you in school at the moment? And I had told her, yes, but I'm not yet in a program. So she said, what are you going in for? And I had told her, I was like, I'm going in for nursing. And she said, well, you're very motivating. You're always like bubbly. You're physically active. That's what I've heard from others. So why don't you think about physical therapy? At the time, I had no idea what physical therapy was. So she started telling me a little bit about it, but then she told me, look into it a little bit more. So I started looking into it. I like the idea of like exercise because that's what I do. I'm a runner. I run 7 miles every day. So I ended up saying, you know what, let me do that and give it a try. I environment to go into the PTA program. So as I'm doing observation hours, I found myself enjoying it a lot, just seeing how the therapists work with patients and how there's like different settings, you have outpatient, you have inpatient. So that's pretty cool, and there's different populations you can work in, you can work in geriatrics, pediatrics, different populations. So I started to see into it and I was like, you know what, I'm going to go into PTA. So I ended up, signing up for it. And then I believe I was accepted into the program for 2019. I started the program. The program was actually pretty manageable for me. It wasn't hard. What was very hard for me was public speaking. So, that's okay. Public speaking for me, that's the only thing that I had a hard time. But with test taking, it was pretty good. Sometimes practicals, but I feel like that's everyone. Because can you hear me? Oh, hold on. Give me a second. Oh, I took the other one. So can you hear me? Oh, okay. So then after that, what's it called? I was able to manage with the program and stuff, but I just had a hard time with like practicals sometimes just because, like I said, everyone gets nervous. And then after that, I ended up graduating and I took some time off just because my clinicals were a little bit pushed off just because of the whole COVID and everything that was going on at the time. So I ended up finishing, I believe, my last clinical rotation in October. I was going to sit down for the October exam, but then I kept saying to myself, that's a lot for me, being in clinicals. I'm not saying that anyone can do it. I've seen people do it, but for me, I just felt like it wasn't going to work out. So I was like, let me take some time off, study a little. Didn't study as much, just a little bit because I felt overly confident just because in school I was actually pretty good in test taking. I really didn't feel exams like that. So I was like, I'll be fine. It's not going to be like a big deal. So the first attempt comes around, and I'm not going to lie, I didn't study as much. I ended up taking the exam and I see my score and I had failed. I was very upset, but then I'm like, okay, that's the consequence because I really didn't study as much. I went on and I said, you know what, let me read the book. Let me start like, getting more into my studying. But I felt like my study habits for the second attempt, they weren't so good. So I started going and I was reading the book and everything. After that, I ended up taking my exam for the second attempt. And then again, I felt like I failed again, but I felt like also I didn't really have a study plan at the time. So then after that, I said, you know what, let me go on for the third attempt. But now I'm going to really focus, take practice exams because the first and the second attempt, I really didn't take any practice exams. I maybe took only one the second attempt, not really so much. So when I went on for my third attempt to take it, I ended up taking 11 practice exams. I was studying the book. I was at the library, you can say like 6 hours every day. I wasn't giving myself a break at all. And then I did catch myself that I was burning myself out a lot because I was taking all these practice exams and I was more rushing to like finish every practice exam and review it than actually understand the material. And one thing I will tell people, don't take so many practice exams just because, oh my God, like I didn't pass the first or the second or third time. Don't do that because I feel like sometimes you burn yourself out. I have told people when they reach out to me, take 7 exams the most or 5. Don't burn yourself out because you will catch yourself reviewing these exams and just going so quickly, trying to finish everything. So when the exam comes, like you already reviewed everything. So that's what I did to myself a lot with the third attempt. I wasn't really giving myself a break. So then I went on for my third attempt and then I ended up failing again. And then I was very disappointed. I didn't purchase no programs at the time or anything. I was just reading the book, looking at videos, and I had reached out to one of my friends. Her name is Favi, and she was telling me about the PTA Elevation, the program. She said, you know what, Brianna, she has a really good program. You should check her out, follow her on Instagram. You can even purchase her program, and that's going to help you a lot. So I ended up following her on Instagram. I would talk to her here and there. I told her what was going on with my situation. So then I said, you know what, the fourth attempt, I really need to get something else because I was starting to reflect on my studying and everything that I was doing. And I felt like a lot of it was I wasn't giving myself a break. I really didn't have a study plan like that. And not only that, I felt like when I was reading the book, I was just reading to read. I wasn't really like understanding at the time the material and stuff. And one thing I will tell people, don't study 6 hours. Study maybe you can say 4 hours at most, but give yourself a break as you're studying. Don't just go the full on at 4 hours because that's what I was doing a lot too. So I ended up talking to Bree and I ended up purchasing her program. Well, when I purchased her program, I started to see, like little by little, I was giving myself some breaks. I was studying. I was also like her program, like I said, it has a lot of key points and keywords to like everything, like what she's talking about, very organized. So I said, you know what, I like this. Everything started to make sense more. Then I also was taking myself some breaks. So like every week I would study, maybe you can say 3 hours at most. But when I would be studying those 3 hours, I would make sure that I was getting breaks in between and stuff. Because if you study the full on 3 hours, you're not going to retain anything. I would study, I would look at the book, look at her video, and then after I was done with that, I would kind of just leave everything to the side and then write my notes. But I wouldn't look at her PowerPoint and I wouldn't look at the book. I just wanted to see how much I was retaining. So if I did retain a lot, I'd be like, okay, I can review this. I'm just saving this for now. I can review this. And after that, when I started doing that, I found myself understanding everything better. And not only that, like I said before, I was giving myself like every week, I was at least giving maybe myself one day for myself. That's something I will tell everyone. Give yourself at least one day for yourself, just so you can, like take a break. Because I feel like when you're not giving yourself that break, you're so overwhelmed and you're just thinking, you're like, I need a pass, I need a pass. And then sometimes you don't get those results you want because of that. So then after that, I end up, studying and everything. And then I went on for my fourth attempt and I took 6 exams. I didn't take 11. And I was seeing that every exam that I was taking, I was passing the exam. I was reviewing those, I was doing that, and then I was taking the notes, and then I was just seeing where I was at. So then after that, I said, you know what, I'm going to take my fourth, the fourth attempt. I ended up taking the fourth attempt and I ended up passing thanks to her program. So that is something I will tell everyone. Don't burn yourself out. Don't take 11 practice exams. Take maybe 6. And not only that, as you're studying, you want to make sure that you're not just studying just to study. You want to make sure you're retaining everything also. For example, like I said before, I was putting her video, I was putting the her book also. And then once I was done with the video and just reading that section, I would just put it to the side. And then after that, I would just kind of write my notes and see how much I'd retain. If I didn't retain as much, I would go again, look at it more. Sometimes I will look at my school books too. That's not something I will tell everyone to do, but just to kind of go further into detail to why and understand better the material. So that is something I will tell everyone. But it did help me, her program, and I really do recommend it for everyone to purchase it if you're having a hard time. It really helped me. So yes.
Wow. Listen, guys, Vanessa just dropped a ton of gems of like studying, being introspective. Like, are my study habits actually serving me? Are they helping? Are they hurting? And I think you really bring up a good point, is that some people, when they don't take enough practice tests, they're like, oh, well, more is better. And I'm like, guys, there's a specific amount that are good, which you said was like 4 to 5 is like usually like a good amount if you're going to be taking it in like 3 months or so. And the big thing I want people to realize about that is it's like taking medication. You have to find the right dosage. If you don't take medication, well, then you're not getting better. But like, for example, the ADHD medication that I'm on, if I took like 3 times the dose that I'm supposed to, I'm going to be like comatose and I'm not going to want to eat anything for 3 days, which is not ideal either. But you take the right dose, which in this case, if we're talking about practice tests, that's going to serve you well and you're going to be able to function, learn material. And I think you also brought up a really good point about when you review your practice exams, to actually be reviewing them to understand and not just to get through it. That's a huge thing.
Yes, that's what I see. I catch myself doing that a lot, like just reviewing to review, but not to understand the material. And I will tell people also, like, review your practice exams, but make sure you're understanding them. Don't just go on and just review them just so you can go on to the next and go on to the next. Because that's what I did a lot on the 3rd attempt. And I felt like that's why I didn't pass, because I was just reviewing to review, not reviewing to understand.
Exactly. You got it, girl. You cracked the code and you passed the exam. So let's talk about that day when you opened it up and you finally saw that pass circle. Tell me about it.
I was crying. I was crying so hard. One thing I will tell everyone, don't give up. Like, as soon as you see that pass, you start crying because of everything you went through, all that hard work, don't give up. I'm telling you guys, don't. I cried and I called my mom. Like, I was shaking, like, because the other times I used to always open it with my family and they were always excited. No, you got it this time. You got it this time. So my family would gather up and we would always open it, and then I would have the fails. So then the 4th attempt, I'm like, no, I'm not doing that with them, just because I'm like, what if I didn't pass? But I mean, I felt like I did, but then I was a little hesitant just because of my past, what everything had happened. So then I ended up opening it and I was excited and I had called my mom. My mom's like literally crying also. My family's like crying, so happy and stuff. But it was really an exciting moment. And I will tell everyone, don't give up, because eventually you will get there. And when you see that pass circle, you will be crying and just be so proud of yourself for everything you did and you didn't give up. Yes.
I think that's an important thing to hear, because some people think like after one attempt, they're like done for, they'll never be a great clinician or anything. And like even people who've like, taken it multiple times, like I mean, a lot of these videos of these Inspire series is people who are like on their 4th or even 5th attempt and everything. And I really want you guys to understand it's possible. And if you listen to, the things that everybody has been saying on these Inspire series and you learn from these people's mistakes, like it's going to take you a lot less attempts to pass, which is what everybody ideally wants. And so speaking of which, like what made you, like, I'm sure you had a lot of fears and stuff and like, self-doubt. What made you not want to give up even after your 3rd fail?
What made me not give up is just like the fact that everything I like went through PTA school, and like when I was going through PTA school, like it was the pandemic and everything, and I'm like, all this hard work for me to just say, forget it and go on to something else.
And then one thing I will tell everyone, please have a support system. Like all my coworkers at work, all my friends, my family, like my coworkers kept rooting for me, Vanessa, all the therapists, go again. Who cares? Go again. Who cares? You know, we have a position for you waiting. Don't give up. Don't give up. So everyone kept telling me that. And I feel like that's something I will emphasize with everyone. You need a support group. You need someone that's there for you, motivating you and just telling you, you know, you got this, you're gonna make it and stuff. And that is what kind of made me, because at a point, I'm not gonna lie, on my third attempt, it really did like I got really sad. I was like, what's going on? Like, what am I doing wrong? And I was so close to leaving like physical therapy field and just going on for business, because I was like, oh, you don't take a board exam, you know, I'll be okay. But then like everyone kept telling me, no, you work so hard. And then I just kept reflecting back and I'm like, yes, I did work so hard. For me to just say bye and go on to something else, I was like, no. So that is something I will tell everyone. You need someone to be there for you and just support you through everything, you know, because when you don't have that, I feel like that's what kind of makes you also kind of like set back and you're like, you know what, maybe this is not for me. But I feel like this is for, you know, everyone that's here watching it. I will tell you, this is for you. Don't give up. And even if it's your third, fourth, even if I didn't pass my fourth attempt, I'm not gonna lie, I would have went on for the fifth and the sixth until like I passed. And that's something I kept telling my family and everyone. Like, I didn't care how many times I had to take it, but like I said again, at a point I was about to give up, but I did have like my coworkers, my friends, and my family helping me out and just supporting me through everything in the journey.
And that is a beautiful thing. And I 100% agree. If there are people in your life who are not supporting you on this journey, even if it's like your own family, like I know some of my Hispanic friends are going to be like, you can't like say you can't talk to your grandma. And I'm just like, well, you might need to limit those conversations with grandma if it's not serving you and it's not supporting you. Limit those times with those people if you can't like temporarily cut them out. But definitely this is a time to surround yourself with yes people. I know there's times where you shouldn't surround yourself with yes people, but you definitely want a lot of people in your corner. And honestly, for some people who are like in my programs, like I might be like the only person who's in their corner, but having at least one person is going to make a huge difference, because when someone else believes in you, it really changes something in yourself that you're like, oh my gosh, I can believe in myself. And I think people really undervalue that. But that also has to be paired with the hard work of doing the grunt work. I'm sure there were times where you're like, oh, I don't want to study, but I know I have to because I don't want to see that fail X again. Like I need to make sure that I get on it. And that's also something that a lot of people struggle with, is just to keep going day in and day out. And I think people like the passes, circles and everything, all that is a result of the boring stuff you do at the end of the day after you come home from a long shift to make sure that you get the reps in to understand the material. And I think a lot of people just like to see the glamour side of it, but it really is a result of hard work. And you have worked like so hard. Like I was telling everybody, I'm like when you were just like, oh, like when you're just saying just now, you're just like, oh, well, if I didn't pass, I'm like, that girl was going to pass. I literally would have bet like my boyfriend's cat like that you would pass. And I love him. He's like, Louis is the cutest little kitty in the entire world. Like, because I don't have any children. So that's my firstborn, I guess. So I like literally I knew you were gonna pass. Like when you sent me your circle, like obviously I was like, you know, jumping for joy as well and like super hype as well. But there was literally no doubt in my mind that you're gonna pass, because I knew you had put in the work and you put in the work right.
Yes. And I feel like it helped a lot with your program. Like I said, I guess you had everything so organized. And one thing about myself is I am not as organized with like, you know, my studying, and like even in school, I would catch myself sometimes not being so organized. I would still pass, but I just wasn't as organized. So I felt like that helped a lot too. And you just keeping up, you know, with like, oh, you know, what are you doing this week with your studying? How is it going? I really like that, like sending those text messages and just kind of having me where I was supposed to be. That really helped a lot too. And before that, I really didn't have that, you know, like I said, I didn't have a study plan and it was just very different. But I really did like that. I really did. I'm glad that I purchased your program.
And I was glad to work with you too. It's always really nice to work with people who are super hungry and like really, really want it and are very motivated. And it's just like, you know, PTA or bust at this point. Like that really sometimes has to be your mindset for studying for this exam, because you almost got to obsess over it obviously taking the day off, I definitely 100% agree with, because if you're listening to this on a podcast, you can't see me like nodding my head vigorously, like, yes, please take a day off. I take Saturdays off from doing pretty much everything. I check messages in the morning, send a couple of emails, and I'm not talking to anybody else after like 9:30 in the morning. And I enjoy the day with my family or my boyfriend or whatever, and we just do fun things. And I definitely recommend doing that, because if you tell yourself you're going to do this for 3 months straight, you will burn yourself out. If you say you're going to do this for 6 days straight and then take a break, you'll be a lot more, on track to pass. So I'm really glad that you brought that up as well. So you've given a ton of great gems and a great piece of advice. I mean, the last question I asked was like, what is the one piece of advice you would tell any PTA student? But I feel like you gave like at least like 8. Is there any other ones you want to add to that?
Honestly, well, yes, just one. Like I said, don't give up. And not only that, like when you were catching yourself, like just very upset and just thinking about like, doubting yourself for the next attempt, don't think about that. Just think about all that hard work, because I used to catch myself like, oh no, like what if I don't pass? Even though I was studying, like for my 4th attempt, even though I was studying and I was taking breaks and everything, sometimes I had doubts in myself. And that's something I will tell you, forget about the past and just move forward. Just move forward and just think about like, okay, I am gonna pass. Keep saying that to yourself. Sometimes even write it down if you want to. And another thing I did do also, it's in my room, I was like posting like all my notes. So I would wake up and I would just kind of see my notes too. And that's something, if you want to give it a try, go for it. But if not, everyone works different and everyone studies different. But that is the last advice I would give everyone. And like I said, don't give up.
Well, I think that that's great, Vanessa, and I'm really, really appreciative of you to come on and share your story, because I think it's going to be inspirational to a lot of other people who might find themselves hopeless in this situation, just to know that they can get out of it. Just some things might have to change, and that's about it. And that introspective and maybe guidance and accountability is what people need, just to really figure out like, what do you need this next attempt that wasn't working, that you didn't have the attempts before, that is going to help you get to the result that you want. Because sometimes it does mean making uncomfortable changes, but sometimes it just means taking things out that weren't working for you. And it sounds like you did some of those as well. So I really appreciate you coming on and talking about your story. Where can people find you if they want to contact you and ask you any questions?
Facebook. I'm mostly on Facebook.
Okay, so just search
Vanessa,
your name.
my name. Vanessa Jaimes. Yeah.
There you go. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I don't think we have any questions, but thank you all for listening. And if you guys are interested in learning more about our coaching program, which is what Vanessa was a part of, you can check out the links down below. But for now, please understand you can do this. I want to make sure everybody knows it is possible. You can definitely pass this thing, and you will be a PTA. The only way that you don't become a PTA is if you quit. That's right. All right. Take care, guys.